Hello, and welcome to On Point. I'm Angela Bickmann, and today we're here to talk about health and fad diets. Healthy eating trends are popular all over the country. Boston Medical Center says nearly 45 million Americans go on a diet each year, and $33 million are spent on weight loss products. Plant-based diets, clean eating, and even meal delivery programs are increasing in popularity. But are they healthy? Can the long-term effects be dangerous or good for us? Also, are these fad diets helpful for those who are dealing with illness? We talked to a few students about their thoughts on food trends.
I don't know a way of dieting and I don't want to look for it. I just kind of know my own way of staying fit.
If you really want to detoxify yourself, you should do it naturally by drinking water, eating healthy, period. You don't need to be purchasing X, Y, and Z products or whatever it is. It's for money. It's a false advertisement. So.
I did try my own little veggie mix with fruits, and I had chia seeds and just wild things. And I realized something different about my body. It just made me feel more health conscious.
I think detoxing is a good way to start a new healthy lifestyle. It's good to keep going.
On Point's Melanie Rosales has more on the story.
Thank you, Angela. Today we have Dr. Terri Lisagor, Professor of Nutrition and Dietetics here at CSUN, and a registered dietitian. And here we have Liz Voosen, a certified nutritionist who has her own practice named Liz Voosen Wellness. My first question is to both of you. Dieting has become a big part of today's culture, and people are using fad diets as a quick fix to lose weight. What are some of your thoughts of these fad diets? For example,
go ahead.
Sorry. For example, the paleo diet.
Right. Well, first, let me answer that by asking you a question, and that is, how do you spell diet?
D-I-E-T.
And what are the first three letters of diet?
D-I-E.
That's exactly right. So diets that we see in our society are built-in failures, pretty much. We want to look at the word dieta, which means a manner of living, and how do we give a healthy lifestyle? So back to your question about the paleo diet, that is a higher protein-based diet, and throughout history, if we look at ever since obesity trends started going up, we see that higher protein diets cycle every 8 years approximately under a new name. So it was the protein powder, it was the zone diet, and those get high in popularity, and then they wane when people aren't successful on staying fit and healthy. So when we are trying to give people advice, we want them to practice balance, variety, moderation, and exercise. So balancing all the food groups, variety within each food group, not just a carrot, but broccoli and all of the other vegetables. Moderation, which means women especially quit feeling guilty if you have a bite of a cookie. And then balance all your intake with exercise and get fit. So dieta, a manner of living.
Going back to the question with dieting being so common, I think we're all searching for health, and we're all searching for what is the right diet. We don't have a great common American diet, and people are kind of lost in the standard American diet right now. It's not serving us well. Most Americans are overweight right now. They're having health issues because of that. So I think people are searching for something. But with fad diets, like Terri was saying, they just don't work and they don't last. You can't maintain them. But I'd love to discuss the paleo diet and other things further.
Yeah, the paleo diet. So what is it?
The paleo diet is a very trendy diet right now. It was started with this idea of what did the caveman eat and what did we eat before we had grains in cultures. And so it's kind of this imaginary diet based on meats, on vegetables, fruits, nuts, and it tosses out grains and really starchy foods. For some people, they find it works really, really well for them. But you have to be careful with it, like anytime you change your diet, and make sure you're getting enough of the vitamins and minerals and all your macronutrients all the way across to make it healthy. But I've seen it work really well for a lot of people. It brings down inflammation and can really help them feel better.
Okay. Now, what about some other diets like the Master Cleanse or some really like crazy diets like the 5-bite diet? Can you guys explain those two as well?
Right, it's what Liz was saying. People are searching for a way to be healthy, and combining that with looking at the trend that we see in our society, especially among the children, where we've got increasing obesity, and then we've got increasing poor health outcomes. People are looking for an easy fix. And the cleanse diet is just what the word says. It sort of promises that you will cleanse the toxins from your system if you eat this category of food and not that, and no white sugars and no processed foods. While in theory that would be healthier, when people concentrate so much on the extremes, it's difficult to maintain. And we want to get people back to what is the healthy choice? How do we make good, sustainable choices about our food and have food that we can enjoy? So the best approach to dieting is 4 words: balance, meaning take from all of the food groups, variety within each food group, eat a bunch of different kinds of foods. So vegetables, don't just eat carrots, but broccoli and cauliflower and that. Moderation means stop feeling guilty if you have a bite of a cookie. And exercise. So balance, variety, moderation, and exercise gives us that balance and an approach to a healthy lifestyle.
Do you have anything to add?
I totally agree with Terri. And but did you ask about the Master Cleanse and the 5-bite? Okay, so Master Cleanse, is that the one that's lemon, honey, and cayenne drinking for 10 days?
Yes, yes. I'm talking about like, juicing. A lot of people seem to use like, juicing and fresh herbs and plants and vegetables and fruits to like cleanse their body.
Right.
So would that be part of the Master Cleanse?
Well, I think the Master Cleanse is a specific, like almost like brand name kind of diet that's based around this fasting for like up to 10 days. And it can be really dangerous. It goes through trends. It's come and gone over the last maybe decade. And you're really just drinking, you're not eating anything, and you can end up with all kinds of health problems from it. People actually like pass out from it because their blood sugar goes all wonky. It's kind of trendy, but dangerous, and it's not gonna do you much good. What happens is somebody does a really trendy short-term diet, right? You lose a couple pounds, hey, that's great, but you can't sustain it. Like, what do you do at the end of 10 days and you're done with your lemon juice? You've got to go back to eating. And so unless a diet really teaches somebody how to eat properly, it's going to fail.
Right, and with the 5-bite diet, that is basically what it says. You take 5 bites, and then you're supposed to stop. Right, and that's, if we eat more slowly, the theory is that we'll be able to feel a little bit fuller sooner. But just like Liz says, there's so many trends, and you watch the cycles, they name it something different, but we have to look out for what is sustainable. You're going to see immediate results with a liquid diet or with the cayenne. You'll see that weight loss, but is the weight loss helping you to get fit? Is it fat loss? Is it water loss? Is it going to be healthy or unhealthy? And is it sustainable? And you want to make sure that the end result is people are fit, people are healthy, and you're teaching them how to eat, not just drink their calories.
Right.
Thank you. So the next question, Liz, this is for you.
Okay.
What is a gluten-free diet? And does being gluten-free help everyone, or is that just people that have celiac disease?
Okay. So this one speaks to me especially because I have celiac disease. So I can tell you all about a gluten-free diet. But in short, what it means is you remove wheat, rye, barley, and oats from your diet. And all things made out of them. So you're not eating pizza, you're not drinking beer, major American staples, right? They're gone.
That's right.
And for someone with an autoimmune disease like celiac disease, which is responding to the gluten, it's absolutely essential that those things are 100% removed from someone's diet. Now, there's slightly less severe issues, gluten sensitivity is a thing that's come to the radar recently, and people with this feel better off of gluten, and we're not sure what's going on with the physiology underneath. There's a lot of research going into it right now, but we know that some people feel better when those things are removed. What can happen on the gluten-free diet, because it's just exploded, and you go down the grocery aisles and there's like a half an aisle that's all gluten-free cookies and breads and pastas and like yummy things. They're just as bad as the originals, maybe worse. So just because you're eating a gluten-free brownie doesn't mean it's going to be healthier for you. In fact, it can often be worse, because in order to make a food gluten-free that would traditionally be made from wheat, you're mimicking wheat out of other food materials. So it's typically really high in starch. They use potato starch, tapioca starch. And so you're not really getting the whole grain, you're not getting or the whole starch or the whole plant. And these foods will actually spike your blood sugar, often worse than the originals. They're also not fortified. So when you have a super processed product, we fortify our flour and stuff now with vitamins that we add back in, and gluten-free products typically are not fortified with vitamins. So somebody who's just generally healthy and is kind of looking to get a little more fit, going down a gluten-free product aisle and buying a bunch of gluten-free products probably isn't going to do them a lot of good.
Right.
Interesting.
I can add to that just a little bit. There are so many foods that you eliminate when you choose to go on a gluten-free diet that just calorie-wise, you're dropping your calorie intake. So the result is going to be lower calorie intake. You're going to lose weight. And so for the consumer, it's like, oh, this is a great weight loss diet. But again, there are so many nutrients that you're not going to be getting. And people, I would say 10 to 15% of the population is gluten sensitive or has celiac disease. And yet it became a trend when some personality, some actress came and said, I use this for weight loss. And that's where all of the products came onto the market shelves. So for people like Liz, it's absolutely essential. But for the other 95% of the, or 85% of the people who are following it, there really isn't any merit to it.
Right.
And it's not sustainable.
And for someone like me who does need to be on it, there's absolutely ways to do it healthy. You focus on real foods, and you don't rely on the baked goods that are typically wheat-based. So it's absolutely possible to do a really healthy gluten-free diet, but not just by subbing out gluten-free for gluten products. You have to be a little more mindful of it.
Right, and if you look with the gluten-free diet, what you're trying to do is eliminate wheat, oat, rye, or barley, the warbs. And the warbs.
I haven't heard of it that way.
If you eliminate that, once again, if you can go to fruits and vegetables, which are allowed, that's great.
Right.
So one of those side effects, but it's what else are they missing that we are concerned about as dietitians.
Really great. Thank you. So we were talking about cutting things out. I had my next question for both of you. What about the other diets that consist of like low carb, low in sugar, other things that are like vegan based? Is it good to just keep cutting things out, or?
Well, one of the things that we recommend is everybody personalize what works well for them, as long as it includes balance, variety, moderation, and exercise. So it's not good, in my professional opinion, to cut out whole food groups, but when we're looking at processed foods, like the sugars and starches that are in processed foods, high sodium usually, it's okay to eliminate those, as long as the calories you're getting in consist of the healthier, more nutrient-dense foods, and that's your fruits, vegetables, whole grains, calcium-based products, and protein.
Yeah, I would agree with what Terri says. There's some things worth completely eliminate. You could completely eliminate sugar.
Right.
That'd be awesome. You'd be healthier for it, right? Hard to do, but you'd be way healthier for it. But you want to keep as many food groups in as you can. There's a lot of great foods out there. They all have vitamins and minerals and different profiles. And for the most part, you know, if it's a real food and looks like the shape that it came from in nature, that's something that's probably really good for you.
Right. One thing that Sally said, a friend of ours had said, is that you sort of go back to eating like your grandmother or great-grandmother did down on the farm. And that's probably a good thing. But if you think about food and us in our society, so much of our enjoyment of life is based around food. And so what of the celebrations, what of the day-to-day when you're meeting somebody? If we can concentrate on what foods are healthier and mostly have that for ourselves, then I think the guilt-laden attitude that we try to impose when we stray from it a little bit can be hard. And we want to help people be a part of life. And food's a part of it.
Thank you. Very great answers. So I wanted to talk about the issue of obesity. Obesity is a very huge problem in this country, and it's becoming a problem all over the world. What do you think is the main cause of obesity?
Do you want? Oh, that's it's multifaceted. First of all, we both have
we could
to
be
say
here for
that.
hours.
We could. But if we look, a lot of it has to do with the cost of food, food insecurity, food deserts. So if you look at socioeconomic income and you look at pockets where lower income people live, then we have the issue of food deserts where they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and you've got your little convenience stores. If you look at the cost of calories for sugars and fats, it's almost nothing, whereas the cost of calories for fruits and vegetables is very high. So it's political, social justice. There's so many things that we have to think about.
Yeah, it goes back to politics, and I think some decisions that were made back in the 60s and 70s were in order to try and make food more affordable for Americans and really to make meat more affordable for Americans, they made grains, corn and soy, more affordable so they could feed the cattle. And what ended up happening is we now have massive government subsidies to grow corn and soy and somewhat wheat. And so those are really, really cheap to purchase and to put into processed foods and for people to buy. So there is something to eat, but we're not subsidizing broccoli. We're not subsidizing oranges. We're not subsidizing chicken. And that's then therefore much more expensive than you go and you buy some frozen pizza or a bag of Doritos. You can get a lot more calories out of a bag of Doritos than you can from like the produce section for the same $1.50. And so like Terri was saying, if cost is a primary focus of your food shopping, you're going to be better off with the cheaper, unhealthier foods.
But in the long run, the cost of health care is going to rise because the cost of health care for an obese child, as that child grows, the health implications are huge. So those of us who choose healthier lifestyles are going to live a longer, higher quality of life, we hope, but we're going to be the ones who are going to be paying for the health care for those who have not lived with a more preventative type of a lifestyle. Right?
There's some shocking statistics now that 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. That's, I mean, 70%. That's the majority is now overweight or obese. And almost 50% of Americans are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And that's huge. That's going to have lifelong implications for people. It used to be that type 2 diabetes was something that kind of got a couple people in their 60s or 70s, and we didn't worry too much about it. It was like a disease of old age, like maybe you'd get it. But it's come down in the ages, and now people in their 40s, people in their 30s, now teenagers are coming down.
I have 5-year-olds in my practice
Type
with
2 diabetes, which is a completely a lifestyle disease. It is absolutely caused by decisions that we make as an individual and as a society in terms of what is available and what we teach people to eat.
We could bring politics into this, and I don't know if that's an okay thing to do, but when we look at how are we subsidizing the lower income kids, what foods are we providing for them? What about the supplemental nutrition program, the SNAP, the old food stamps. How are we helping the lower income have access to healthier foods? And that is a really important issue that we all have to address, and we all have to march for, frankly.
Thank you. So you guys touched on a lot of great topics. So what alternatives can you get? Because we're so driven to like these foods that have a bunch of like fat, salt, and sugar. So what can we go ahead and help these low-income families to give an alternative, to give some advice, to give some tips so that it can be affordable, but yet they still have access to that healthier, those healthier products?
Interesting question. Yeah. Because a lot of the subsidies and what's made available are the super processed foods. And when you go into even like a food bank, it's super processed foods because they're really shelf stable and really inexpensive. But I've seen some things beginning to shift where there's like food pantries on high school campuses and
At
college campuses where they're making efforts to get fresh produce in there. And they're making efforts to get fresher foods and healthier choices in. And I think it's just going to have to come from the community and what people want.
I will say as well that the processed foods are addictive, intentionally manufactured that way for the sugars and salts. A lot of it will trigger the brain to want that food over and over again. So as well as being low cost, there's that side effect that it is addictive. So as a society, if we look to see how can we help people, education is big on this. So have community gardens in the low-income areas, have community workshops where you do cooking classes, where you teach the people without shaming them, but involving them in their health and well-being. And a lot of times with the families in the low-income areas where we see higher obesity levels, if we talk about the impact on their children, that speaks to parents and that speaks to families. So make it more family-based. I don't know if you know this statistic, Mel, but at CSUN we've got a huge homeless population among our students. I've heard as many as 10,000 students. So where do our students get access to healthy food that will help them succeed? We have, all of us who have the ability, have to figure out a way that we can help empower all of the populations to be a part of their own solution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There are some of the, we think about Los Angeles all the time because we're right here, and it can be hard to get community gardens and produce, although they're wonderful. But out in the rural areas, you can go to small farmers and you can like go in with your neighbors and buy like half a cow. And it's way cheaper than going into the store and looking for things. So there are sometimes affordable things you can do when you pair up with a couple of friends and you can go in for large purchases.
Right, and you educate, and those who go in for the large purchases, if in your communities you community organize, get these kids on buses and go out to some of the farms. I know, and I don't know if I'm supposed to name drop or allowed to, but Underwood Farms has the school buses of the children who go out to the farms and they actually pick the vegetables. They see it growing. And those we have a garden, we have a couple of gardens on CSUN campus. And if we can get our preschool classes out there or our school children from around the community, this is how CSUN is a community partner with health and well-being. But I think all of those sorts of things, we all have a responsibility to be a part of the solution.
Thank you, thank you. So Trump recently announced his plan to cut half of the food stamps benefits and instead replace them with a food box filled with ready-to-go cereal, canned veggies. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's a good idea to have him decide what these low-income families should be eating?
Well, I think first of all, if you're going to make a decision for what people should be eating, you ought to eat well too. So I'm going to start with that. But canned vegetables, canned foods are higher sodium. They're processed, and as Liz was talking about, that's not the answer, in my professional opinion. But to have somebody dictate things that aren't really transferable lifestyle changes that are healthy and helpful, I don't think that's a good idea. And so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I haven't heard really any details come out about that plan. I've heard of the box thing, and it's like,
Yeah.
what's in the box? I don't know.
Another box.
Another.
Another box. Yeah. So, but what are your thoughts on that though? So, do you think that he should be making that decision for people, or no?
I would think you'd want to make the decision regionally with what food is available and what people like to eat, and you might want to have a little more control from the people who are getting the boxes. They might want some say in it.
Right, and there are cultural differences in what
Yeah.
foods people prefer. But having said that, the food supplement programs are a federally run program. But just like Liz says, then you have to let it filter down for the decisions to be among those health professionals, not necessarily, or not our federal government, but health professionals maybe within the government at all different levels with input from the community activists, community organizers. But you really do have to take into account cultural and health. I mean, obviously health first and cultural preferences.
Thank you, and that's all we have time for today.
Thank you, Melanie, for having us here. It was really fun and enlightening.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. You're gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Go, bro. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
You made this vacation happen, cleverly merging promotions,
Double points with every purchase.
and cross-referencing travel sites. Aloha! If you can ace your vacation, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can also watch us on Santa Clarita Valley Cable Television on Sunday mornings at 11:30 and on LA 36 on Friday mornings at 8:30. You can also hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Angela Bickmann.